not expecting to have that sort of audible difference by adding a cold air intake. Boys and girls, dubbers and dubbettes. Today we're going to be installing a Unitronic cold air intake on the 2011 Mark 6 GTI. So if you watch any of my previous videos with the Mark 6 GTI, you'll know that I mentioned the previous owner had a Unitronic cold air intake for the car. It was installed on the car, but when the previous owner went to bring it in to trade the car in, he took it off. So we've got the big charge pipe here, the filter that looks like it might need a little bit of cleaning. I'll try to blow it off with the compressor, and then all sorts of various elbow tubes, all the hardware in there. So hopefully this is a straightforward install. I'm willing to bet that I'm going to be missing some parts, but we're going to pop the hood on this thing and get going. Now I know a lot of people are going to be putting a cold air intake on their car because they think it changes the sound. I've actually, with all the cars that I've owned and my brother's owned and all of my friends, none of us have actually put on cold air intakes. But to keep you guys happy, I'm going to start this up and give it a few revs with the factory air box in there. We're going to see how it sounds compared to after we put in the cold air intake.
Turn it off. Turn it off!
So the stuff we have to remove to put in the cold air intake, first things first, is this little box that the clean air goes into. It goes down into this pipe, into the actual air filter box itself. That'll be all coming out. We're also gonna have to disconnect this mass airflow sensor, the charge tube going down to the turbo. So first things first, I'm just gonna pop these little tabs that are around the edges of this little cover here. Pops off just like that. So now we have to disconnect the mass airflow sensor right here. Just take a little flathead screwdriver, pry this little portion up. You'll hear a little click. You can wiggle it off, put that up and out of the way so it stays clean. Now we're gonna use some pliers and remove this collar right here. Just squeeze that and wiggle the tube off and disconnect these two parts. Next, we're gonna use a 5mm Allen socket to remove this little bolt down here that's holding the air box. Come on now, any minute. Definitely a project that's better for someone with small hands. That bolt threaded all the way out. Now on this side, you have almost like an exhaust hanger type thing. We just have to get under it, pull up on it. It pops off like that. Now there's another rubber hanger somewhere down there. So we just pull up, and that releases it. Once the airbox is removed from its rubber mounting points, we're gonna remove this little breather right here. Just gonna squeeze on the ends of it and wiggle it off like that. Then you have one more down here. We're gonna have to remove. Pull the air box up and just pull that one out. And we can get around this little candy cane. And the factory air box is out. The bolt we're going after back here next to remove this stock charge tube is a 10mm and it's back there. Basically, we're going for the bolt that holds that in place. It's threaded through this way. It's a 10mm, so we're gonna climb back there now and pull that out. I found it easiest to use a ratcheting wrench for this, because it is kind of tight to get back there. There's the bolt right there, simple as that. Definitely helped using a ratcheting wrench. So now on the back of this intake tube, there are two of those stainless steel collars that we removed right up here. There's two of those down there. We're gonna remove the lowest one, and that'll allow us to pull this whole tube out. All right, once that's out, press these two tabs on the side of this PVC hose. Comes off intake just like that. Now we're gonna remove the two T20 Torx bolts. I'm sorry, the T25 Torx bolts. There's one in there, kind of hard to see, and then one on this side. They both go on like this to hold this little air box thing on. Almost lost it. Now we need to take our T25 Torx. We have to remove these two bolts that hold on the mass airflow sensor to the factory air box. A little bit of force, comes out like that. Now we're going to take the silicone coupler The smaller end, the smaller diameter end is gonna go on the edge of the turbo right there. Just slides over. Now we're just gonna tighten the hose clamp, and you wanna make sure this is tight. Now before we put on the Unitronic charge pipe, we do have to put another hose clamp over the coupler we just put on so that when we put the charge pipe on, we'll have a clamp to use. Now just a helpful hint, when you're arranging your hose clamps, put the actual Phillips head part where you're actually gonna tighten it down in a place where you're gonna be able to get a screwdriver. Remember there's two down here, so I have one facing this way so I can get a screwdriver to tighten that one, and then this one's facing this way so I can get a screwdriver down there and tighten that one. Now you'll notice this coupler that goes onto the turbo, the silicone coupler, it is a little bit deformed because of these two hard wires right here, these pieces of plumbing, looks like coolant. So they do misshape the coupler a little bit. We should still be able to get the charge pipe on there. Now we're gonna try to get the charge pipe on there. Take a little breather out of the way. So with the charge pipe seated in the silicone coupler, we're now gonna attach this breather valve, breather tube. Push it in until you hear it click. Firmly in there. And now we're gonna make sure that the charge pipe is set in there and tighten that hose clamp, that second higher hose clamp that we left hanging right here. Now we're gonna take the OEM 10mm bolt and put it behind the intake tube. Tighten it up with our 10mm ratchet wrench. We're gonna remove this 10mm bolt down here by the battery box. Now we're gonna take and install the heat shield. You're gonna put it over this vacuum line right here, breather line, whatever that is. Just place it in like so. This line is gonna go through this little clamp thing and secure down there. This bolt hole right here has to line up, as well as that one right here, the one that we just removed. Put this bolt back in. So for this bolt right here, you can't get the factory one out of the air box, so we're using the supplied hardware with this gargantuan washer. We're gonna thread that one on there. And then we have our last Torx bit that goes in right up here. So now we're gonna put on one of the silicone couplers. Make sure the U is up for more horsepower. We're gonna take both these clamps, throw them on here. Make sure you put them in a pattern so that you can access the screw easily to loosen or tighten them. Now we're gonna take the mass airflow sensor. That arrow right there shows the direction of airflow. So in this case, we're gonna set it up like this, and you have that little clip that the pin connector clips onto. There. Now we're going to take the largest of the hose clamps and our last silicone elbow here. Place it over the mass airflow sensor. And then we're going to take this end and put our last hose clamp. Put that on there, and then we're going to attach this to the filter itself. Tighten up all of these hose clamps to make sure we have no boost leaks. All right, now we have this one little screw left over that came from that front air dam box thing. I'm just gonna thread that back in where it came from. It doesn't secure anything. Plug the mass airflow sensor right back in there, make sure it clicks and is secure. And then we're gonna take this little breather valve and plug it into this tube that was just hanging out, not doing much. Listen for the click. All right guys, so the intake's all in. It was a pretty straightforward install. It wasn't very difficult. It was hard to get my larger hands in some of the smaller locations.
That's what she said?
But now I'm curious how it sounds with this cold air intake. So we're gonna go ahead, start it up, give it a few revs, and compare it to the factory airbox sound. actually really, really sick. Was not expecting to have that sort of audible difference by adding a cold air intake. Sounds really cool. If you guys are interested in putting this on your MK6 GTI, I'll include links down in the description below so you can check this cold air intake out. But let me know down in the comment section below whether you like the sound with the cold air intake on the car versus the stock intake. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Other than that, guys, that's it for me today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Happy motoring.